the tech areas where we are going to see the funding, tech areas that will attract funding. That is the topic of the second session. Let's have the panel member slide so that we can have the introduction of our next set of speakers. So while we thank our first session speakers, now let me introduce the second panel, which is being moderated by Harshan Vivi, Assistant Vice President, Invest India. Harshan leads several initiatives for the Agni technology uh, commercialization program from the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. He has worked at the intersection of technology and public policy across sectors, and most recently at the Chief Minister's Office in Kerala to drive innovation and digital government transformation. That is what we need today, which is the intersection of the innovation, the technologies, and public policies. And that is the kind of inputs we will be getting from our moderator. I welcome Mr. Harshan on this panel as the chair of this discussion. I now introduce our speakers in the alphabetical order. Our first very eminent panelist is Mr. Gaurav Burman. He is the APEC president for 75F. He leads 75F Smart Innovations and has handled diverse portfolios including product management, alliances, channel sales, and enterprise sales. His previous assignments were with companies like Schneider Electric, IBM, and L&T. And in fact, let me tell you, he has been recognized as one of the 100 most talented CMOs in the world by the US-based CMO Council. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Baban. And now our next veteran panel member is Mr. Ninad Karpe. He's the partner 100x.vc. Let me tell you something about 100x.vc for those who would not know about it. It invests in early stage startups and aims to invest in 100 startups every year. It is the first institutional investor that invests by the pioneering iSafe notes. Mr. Karpe, in fact, he has authored a book on business strategies called Bond to Baba, which is listed by Amazon in its prestigious list of memorable books of 2018. So a very accomplished speaker that we have here today with us. Our next speaker is the young and dynamic Prithvi Ram Kanakamidela, Managing Partner, KMV Spaces LLP. Prithvi Ram is a tech enthusiast with a passion for business management. He's experienced in construction, property development, and technology domains with an in-depth knowledge of Indian and American construction real estate industries. He has brought various tech initiatives and organizational practices in the company, and we will be hearing again the sector and the developers' point of view on this session from Prithvi. Our next eminent speaker, Mr. Sumit Sharma. He is the Global Contracts Director, Workplace Services, Capgemini. Sumit is a workplace services leader proficient in CRE value creation, employee experience, sustainability, and customer centricity. He is responsible for delivering resilience of services and outcomes in over 40 countries of Capgemini business, strategic contracts and supply chains across geographies. So, end user perspective that we will be getting from Sumit in this session. Our next and final panel member is Mr. Vijay Kumar Arisetu, founder and CEO of Flygate. In fact, let me tell you, has a very diverse profile. Vijay was a helicopter pilot with the Indian Air Force for 10 years and is a recipient for the Shaurya Chakra, a peacetime gallantry award. He was later the vice president at Goldman Sachs before embarking on his entrepreneur journey with MyGate, which, as we all know, simplifies management of communities with an intuitive app-based solution. So from one services to the technology segment, Vijay is here with us to share his point of view. Harshan, I hand it over to you, the eminent speakers of today's panel.
Thank you, Sapna. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to this session. It's a very interesting topic that we have got to discuss here with a lot of focus on how investments, where investments are going to happen and how investment scenario is looking like in the sector. I especially want to welcome all of you, Ninad, Gaurav, Sumit, Vijay, and Prithvi. It's really exciting to have an opportunity to hear your very, very relevant thoughts on this subject. Just to introduce myself and the mission that I work on, I am part of the Agni mission, which is an Office of Principal Scientific Advisors mission under the Government of India. The primary objective of the mission is to help innovators and early stage startups gain access to commercialization opportunities. And we work across the spectrum with early stage innovators, including public funded research labs, to achieve and develop India's capabilities for innovation and also to meet the goals of Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think that is the underlying and overarching theme that the government is currently focusing on. Today, we have an exciting panel of experts who would decode this interesting topic of how technology is emerging in this PropTech space and where are the areas that funding would be looking for. And we'd want to really hear their insights and ideas on how transformative changes are happening in this segment and what are the emerging trends in this space. As Sapna was mentioning, we have a very comprehensive perspective that we could gain at the end of this session, because we have experts coming from all sides of the spectrum, including the investor view, including the view from the end users, and also the view from the technology innovators. Just to set the context, the real estate industry, and also to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, the real estate industry was the most disrupted due to COVID in the beginning. But if you look at the current and future sentiments of the sector, especially according to the reports that have come out just today, the Knight Frank, FICCI, Nardeco Real Estate Sentiment Index, the index seems to be fairly positive, and there's a really optimistic sentiment around the industry going forward. One factor we have to note here is also that the outlook is positive across the segments, whether it is a commercial space, whether it is a residential space, the outlook remains positive. And this is also due to the overall positive sentiment about the India growth story. The India resurgence story has been one of the most talked about in the recent past. And if you look at it, the IMF's projections for India's growth is the highest in 2021. It's about 11%, even beating China. So there is a general overall positive sentiment around India and India's capabilities to grow rapidly coming out of this pandemic, and that also reflects in this space as well. There are also other factors that govern the growth story of real estate and growth story of India. One of them would be the obvious widespread expected availability of vaccines. And despite opening up the economy the past 3, 4, 5 months, India has not really seen a second wave, and we've been actually able to completely get down the first wave, and the cases remain much lower than any place else in the world. So I think all these factors are contributing to a very positive outlook for the segment, but this doesn't mean that there are no challenges. So this panel would want to also look at the risks that emerge from a disruption, because COVID, one thing 2020 has taught us is obviously that there are possibilities of business disruptions that might happen in the future. So how do we de-risk our business is one perspective that will be very interesting to look at. Also, another interesting perspective the panelists would be obviously talking about is how sustainability is emerging as a common theme across innovations, across areas which would attract funding. So how that is an important factor when we look at businesses for the future, because the impacts of climate change are increasingly visible across the globe. We'll also have a very broad overview from a global and local perspective, because we have experts who are present across the geography here. With that broad context here, I would want to now get moving with the questions. The panelists. Let me start with Ninad here first. Hi Ninad, welcome again. It's great to hear your thoughts. Just wanted to pick up. You have often said that what has worked in the past will not work in the future. That's obviously a common theme that you've focused upon. Just wanted to understand from you, what has worked for the industry in the past, and what do you think will work in the future now that COVID has been a major factor in how the industries would move forward? Just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Arshan. Your opening comments are very, very comprehensive. Leaves little room for us to comment, but I will still nevertheless make some comments. So your industry, the entire real estate industry, property tech industry, has done a phenomenal job in creating so many homes. It's been an industry which has been for last so many years doing an excellent job across various sectors. But like any other industry, it has to reinvent. Uh, if it hasn't reinvented, COVID is the time which has forced reinvention to a lot of industries, education industry, your industry. A lot of industries have are forced to reinvent. Let me divert my topic a little bit and give an example of James Bond. James Bond is a successful franchise for 50 years till Skyfall was released, and the character of James Bond, despite being successful, was changed dramatically, and the results were there to see. It was Skyfall was a huge success. So although you've been successful, you have to reinvent to become a much greater success. I think what has worked in the past is, by and large, demand was always there. By and large, I'm not saying, of course, there are pockets. By and large, the Indian mood of always buying a home. So on the demand side, by and large, it was more or less given. It was just about figuring out how to tap it, how to get the customer. The whole aspect of creating a demand was not, if I may submit, is something which requires far greater attention. So yes, what has worked in the past was you had a demand which was there. You had to just figure out how to tap the existing demand. Now what needs to be done is slightly different. Figure out how to reinvent the whole thing and ensure that the demand which is latent, patent, may not be on the top, maybe something sitting down, how to tap that as well and use customers to attract. So in brief, that is what I would like to say.
Thank you, Ninad. I think that are really very relevant points. You've really highlighted the fact that the disruption has obviously caused a dip in demand, while the outlook is fairly positive. The demand is yet to pick up. Do you think any new trends would accelerate in terms of picking up demand for the technologies, specifically in the prop tech space? I'm just following it up with a small rejoinder here.
So it's a bigger topic. Maybe I'll just give a quick pointer now, and then we can come later for a discussion, because you have touched upon a raw nerve of mine. So if maybe allowed to permit, it might be controversial. You might start throwing brickbats virtually at me. There are some industries which naturally adopted to technology. Financial services, one such industry, banking, finance. They embraced it ahead of time. There are some industries which are slow in adopting. Education, by and large, your industry, property related, by and large, obviously there are some. So please don't start throwing brickbats. I'm already getting some glares from people. But yes, there are some exceptions to the rule. So by and large, it has been a little slow. Now, the first aspect of embracing is the peripheral aspect, which is, connected to the accounting, the process. The second aspect is the customer interaction. But these are circles. You have to go to the core, and that is what is going to happen now. And the core is technology has to come to the core. The industry is now fairly adapted well in the peripheral areas of customer acquisition, in the sense of communication, of processes. It's good, not bad, but it has to go deeper.
Thank you, Ninad. I think as you rightly pointed out, that was that obviously would come up in the next round of discussions. I'm obviously Gaurav has been very vocal of this challenge himself. So I think we touch upon the next round of discussion with Gaurav, when you could also then pitch in with your points. Thank you so much. Let me now move to Gaurav. Gaurav, hi. As a global operating across geographies, you've seen it all basically. You've deployed your solutions in the US. You've deployed it in India. What do you perceive as the global trend currently in this space? And has the new normal actually surfaced any common themes like that are applicable, whether it is in the US, whether it is in India, whether it's in Japan? Do you see any common trends emerging?
Certainly. Thanks for the question, Harshan. And it's such a broad one. that time is really going to be the key constraint for me here. But let me answer it in this way, that across geographies, in the PropTech space, it's really 4 or 5 things that the different geographies are really striving to achieve. The extent may be greater or lesser in different geographies, but really speaking, they're trying to, PropTech is seeking to make buildings smarter, seeking to make buildings more efficient, more secure, healthy, and sustainable, right? So these are probably the 5 things which the sector is trying to drive at. In, let's say, the US, anything which makes the buildings easier to install, which requires less manpower, so it's more automated, that tends to be more popular, and there's more focus on that. There's a greater adoption of that. There's more VC money put behind that. In India, which is not just on the opposite side of the globe from the US, we're also hot country, cold country, but also in terms of how we approach technology, it's from a somewhat different angle. Automation is probably not the driver. Efficiency is probably what is looked at more in India. Anything that makes the buildings more efficient, operationally, that is something that tends to be adopted more easily. In terms of some of the tools that are being used, you did ask about what's happening with regard to PropTech globally. The tools that are being used are many and are multi-hued. There's the cloud, of course, which is being deployed in the property space in a large way. There is artificial intelligence and various forms. Today, predictive artificial intelligence is starting to be deployed in more and more edge computing devices. We're starting to see more of machine learning. So for asset management and things like that, there's increasingly more sophisticated machine learning algorithms which are being deployed. We're seeing the usual ones, BIM and all, which are now starting to see their second avatar. New trends like digital twin are starting to come in. But the end result is to try and make it a lot more connected and a lot simpler. So that's the key challenge for facility managers today, that there's such a plethora of data which is coming their way, that simplification is something which is being the main goal which they are seeking to drive at. And lastly, in terms of trends, I will say that in order to make the whole party go around, there's 3 things that are required. There's the need, which is the clients, the tenants or the builders who own the buildings. They're there, and clearly there is a need from their end. There are the technology providers, people like us who are coming out with this technology. But in order for the party to go around, there's as my good friend Ninad is, and his ilk, there is the money which is required to make the whole thing go around. So increasingly, the trend over the last 3, 4, 5 years is that, from probably 4 years ago, maybe the sector was about $10 or $12 billion. Today, it's approaching the 3-figure mark. There's a significant amount of investment which is coming in many different geographies, many different areas, and that can only augur well for the future.
Thank you, Gaurav. I think if I sum it up, operational efficiency is where the key lies, and you have to follow the money to see where the trends are going. Thank you so much. I think those are excellent comments. I think now that we have the context, let's hear from the end user. Let me have Sumit come in. Sumit, I think there have been obviously comments on how operational efficiency is the key from an end user perspective, and also there has been a little bit of a challenge in terms of demand and uptake of technologies. Wanted to hear your view on how has your experience been so far as a consumer of these kind of technologies, the new age PropTech startups and solutions, and did they, again alluding to the whole disruption caused by COVID, did you see a significant benefit of employing technologies, or what kind of technologies would you see is most beneficial in case of disruption?
Thank you, Harshan. It's quite an interesting question, and the response may be interesting to some of you. First of all, thank you for having me here with this eminent panel. I think the remarks by everybody, including your opening remarks, have set context very right. But coming to this particular question which you're asking me, what I realized was that the contribution of startups to help us become resilient was very high. And when I make that statement, it may be a general statement, but the fact was that most of the large organizations which had a way of working and were able to try and get on their own pace to be resilient on their business had more or less the momentum which was carrying them had lost flexibility in there. And this particular event, the pandemic event, suddenly made all of us realize that we need more hands to try and solve the same problem at multiple ends, right? While the core was available with most of the enterprises, and I'm not particularly talking about Capgemini here, for them to bounce back their business, but what was missing was those additional hands to fine tune as we got into the journey of bouncing back. That is where we realized that the flexibility which the startup ecosystem in the PropTech world had came to a big rescue for larger organizations. We were able to bring in solutions which are not available at a large enterprise level, but need to be plugged in at a consumer level, like your transport solutions, your solutions which are to do with your social distancing solutions, which have technology solutions which have to do with your security, entry, exit into the building, making use of touchless technology so that you can administer the traffic within the building as per the changing norms, which were almost changing every month and a week at a time in the pandemic. So all those abilities were things which required huge amount of flexibility, at the same time required sophisticated cutting edge technologies in all fields. So I think that complement was brought in by the startup tech, and it was a very successful experiment. Now, what did we learn from here? What we learned from here was that there is a larger need for larger enterprises to bring in the startup ecosystem as a permanent partner to their growth. Most large organizations end up investing big time in their own tech, but then keeping a warm partnership with the startup ecosystem in the future is something which most of the large tech companies are learning is a way to go forward. And when I say that, I also support it with kind of numbers we have seen in the growth of startup unicorns, especially in the B2B tech space. 58% of the unicorns which have been set up in India in 2020, all of them are B2B tech startups. So I think that's where we have seen a huge amount of support and flexibility towards solutioning, which was brought in by startups to us.
Great. Thank you, Sumit. I think those were very, very, very relevant points. You spoke about how startups come across as more flexible and adaptable, and that is the key to disruption if you look at it. I think if you look at the broad trends in the sector as well, whoever has actually adapted to the new reality of working remotely or the new reality of a digital presence, those were the startups and those were the technologies that could survive the disruption, and those who were late to adapt obviously had to face the brunt, both in terms of raising funds or both in terms of also scaling their business. Coming to the flexibility and talking about startups, we obviously have Vijay, who has built his startup from ground up, who has now scaled the startup to reach more than 2.5 million homes. So he could possibly come in and talk about two things. One, what are the emerging trends that he has seen in the space, which he has picked up and was able to deploy and employ in his scaling experience that is done. And two, how important is partnership? Sumit was alluding to enterprises starting to partner with startups rather than trying and making investments on their own. How important is partnerships, a B2B kind of partnerships for startups to actually grow in the space? Vijay, if we could hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Darshan. So I think the interesting trends that we are seeing, right? I think a lot has been touched by Ninad and Gaurav, right? People are looking for efficiency at how they manage their communities, right? And fortunately, unfortunately, right, we are our customers, right, especially at MyGate, the customers are more like, they are probably the SCCA of India, right? More in, like, they have the ability to earn, more than the household, right? At a household level, both the husband and the wife and other family members together are able to earn more than 30 lakh rupees per annum, right? So if you see, so this particular cohort is, much more demanding, right? But the people who are servicing these, right? So in a startup like MyGate, right, where, and especially all the PropTech related startups, right? What we see is the end consumers are, a particular, the consumers deal with the product in a particular way, and their expectation from the product is completely different. While the people who are using this product to give that experience to the end user are, a different set of people, right? If you see in the case of MyGate, the end user is a resident who is, at the SCCA of India, but the people who on ground who make the product successful are the security guards, who are probably, one of the blue collared or gray collared, employee, I would say, right? So, it depends, right, in terms of, what are the things that you require.
Yeah.
The innovation here is how do you make this match very, very simple, right? In terms like whatever product you create for the end user, how easy or how simple it is for the, people who are making the product successful on the ground is, right? So that, I think, is a very, very important thing, right? And at the same time, right, some of the technologies that, are being used in the West, right, we cannot get that back to India, because in India we don't look at automation, but we look for efficiency, right? And the way you need to look at this problem, efficiency versus automation, is completely different. You have a lot of tools that are available in the West for automation, but efficiency, there is nothing. So you need to think from ground up for the Indian conditions, right? For, solving the problem. The other thing that I would say is, to solve the problem for India, right? You need, like, if you solve the problem for India, that product will not be applicable anywhere else. And if you solve the problem for anywhere else, that product will not be applicable for India, right? So if you look at the end to end, that, that one sentence, what has been told by Gaurav, that operational efficiency, is very important for a country like India. And that particular thing, if you look at that, from the with a microscope, how do we make ourselves operational efficient, right? And a completely different set of solutions will come out, which were never thought of and which are never being practiced in any other country, right? So I think what is the trend that is coming, right? I think the trend is operational efficiency, and to get that operational efficiency with respect to whatever problem you're solving, it actually gets you to a new solution, right? The existing solutions will not work for India. Yeah. So Harshan,
I think you. Thank you, Vijay. Obviously, that has a lot of insight on the ground, especially when you spoke about the difference in the end consumer versus the people who are implementing that solution. I think that's a very critical insight from the ground up. Also, the distinction between what versus how. We all know what we need to get to, which is operational efficiency, but how do we get to, based on the ground realities, based on the reality, the local reality in India? I think that's a very, very important point that you picked up. Thank you so much for that. Let us now move to Prithvi, who would again come in from an end user perspective, but this is a much more grounded perspective from a construction sector standpoint. And two, also to talk about the problem statements that startups should solve for, to be able to, again, when we speak about following the money would go where the demand is, right? And where the demand will come when there is a problem to solve. So we really want to hear from you, Prithvi. What are the problems that are most pressing for you? What are the problem statements that you have where you would want technologies to come in and work?
Thank you, Harshan. So in my view, I've looked at implementing various technologies over the past few years. So one thing that has kept our entire organization in the efficiency mode is to look at integration. So when we talk, that has been the key word for us in driving our choice for technology, or the choice for the way forward. Right from design stage, where we look at how we design the project, to the marketing phase, to the construction phase, and to the facility management phase. So how do we integrate, all of these pieces in a way that the information is transmitted from X to, X to Z in a smooth fashion? So design, we basically solved our major problem of 2D drawings by implementing 3D models, which have been a key driver in visualizing the end use and solving many construction problems right at the start. So that has been very key in solving our major problems in the current level. And from that, marketing, of course, a lot of the panelists have also mentioned that there are a lot of tools already available in the market. So those tools have definitely enhanced our efficiency in terms of how we engage the customer over a period of time, because real estate has a long gestation period in terms of the customer acquisition. So how do we engage them so that we are not intruding into their space? At the same time, we are giving them enough information so that they can take well-informed decisions in terms of their the property or their home that they would like to buy. And the other aspect is construction. I mean, traditionally, construction is been the slowest in the industry to adopt to any new technologies, and that has been the fact all over the world. And I don't think it will be different in an Indian context. But I see a lot of change coming up, where certain parts of the constructions are being modulated to enhance the speed of the process. Of course, there are countries like Singapore who have implemented complete pre-finished prefabricated volumetric models, where they just they just install the buildings in containers. And it's quite fascinating actually to have a glimpse at how that would be. They're just finishing 20-30 floor of hotels in a span of 1 year, completely furnished. So that has significantly gotten the time reduced. But apart from that, facilities, of course, Vijay touched upon the great point, on how we actually bring the end user into the game, so that they would be able to understand the entire process and be with the community and think along with the community so that the engagement is better. So all in all, I'd say that the integration between all of this is the key point, and how we bring from the design thought process and to the end user, which is the facility management. So how do we integrate all these steps so that we have a better better connect between the end user versus what a developer is planning? And any technology, I would say, which goes in these lines would be a great hit and would be what I would look for.
Fantastic. Thank you, Prithvi. I think the key points that anybody who's looking at this discussion could take away are: one, the need to have integration at a common platform that everyone can then plug into. So the integration from the design stage is very important. Otherwise, the customer experience would get broken in the midst. And also understanding how to continuously engage the customer, the kind of solutions that would be really successful, the kind of problems that you're facing would be addressed by having solutions and technologies that would provide a continuous engagement mechanism to the customer. Fantastic. I think we've had great insights and a lot of very valid points. I've made my notes as well as all of you were speaking. Now let's just pivot ourselves to talk a little bit more about investments and funding to the sector per se. One context here is obviously when the whole world was reeling with negative growth in FDI. India was the only major economy which saw a growth, and a growth of 13% in 2020, I think, which was a significant deal in terms of how India is looked at globally as an emerging, as a resurgent spot for growth, even in the new reality of 2021. Looking at that, I'd again go back to Ninad to see what are the segments you see in PropTech which will offer maximum returns to investors, and how excited are you for the sector? in terms of the future prospects and why? Ninad, if you could address, I think from an investor point of view, I think your views will be most relevant here.
Sure, thank you. 2021 calendar year is going to be by far the most exciting year for this industry in many years to come. 11% GDP growth rate, IMF is predicting for the economy.
Yeah.
I mean, you just put that, slap it on to what your industry is going to grow. It is just going to grow very, very rapidly. What are we excited about? Firstly, the opportunity. So there are a couple of buckets. I will just name a few buckets. One is a bucket of efficiency, which Gaurav mentioned a lot. Second is the bucket of customer acquisition. In that bucket, still a lot needs to be done. COVID has changed many things for the better. The need for physical interaction between the customers and the developers is going to get drastically reduced. It's music to the ears of people selling, because earlier everything was a physical meeting. Now customers themselves are saying, no, I'm not interested in meeting physically. Let's do as much as possible. That's a great opportunity. So customer acquisition piece, whether you use technologies like AR, VR, virtual reality, all of that stuff is the second bucket: efficiency, customer acquisition. Third, internal efficiencies within the organization. And that, by and large, a lot of people have already embraced and adopted. If they have not, it's already too late. Better do it. Fourth is a part which Gaurav alluded to: use of AI, ML, and blockchain. I'm looking for people going this to the root of it. Blockchain will change everything. The biggest aspect it will change is the trust factor, the transparency, and then disintermediation. So this entire aspect can be done with that. And the last point Sumit mentioned about startups, you have to embrace startups. You as an industry will not think of innovative ideas. There will be someone from outside who will come in and think of smart ideas. You have to embrace it, either invest in them, support them. We are always, of course, investing as investors, but as an industry, you need to have an ecosystem to support them. So these are 5 buckets in brief I thought I'll articulate.
Thank you, Ninad. I think all of them are extremely important, starting with efficiency. Also, the increased adoption that you are looking forward to in 2021 of the emerging technologies with AI, ML, blockchain leading the pack. And a very interesting point on customer acquisition that you mentioned, how the barriers have now broken in terms of the need to have a physical interaction for selling. That would be the point when I'd want Gaurav to come in, because Gaurav has been a vocal advocate of the challenges of technology adoption in this space. Gaurav, do you think with the new reality and the change in customer acquisition processes and the preferences of customers themselves, do you think the scenario will change in 2021? What are the new opportunities that you see with the changed context that Ninad was providing in terms of growing your business in 2021? Gaurav?
Gaurav, I think you're on mute. You're speaking on mute. Could you unmute yourself?
That is strange. Am I audible now? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, amen to whatever Ninad said, and hopefully that will come and see the light of day. The challenges that I'll deal with the challenges first, and then the opportunities. The challenges are many, but by the same token, so are the opportunities. So let me just get those out of the way. Obviously, for the Indian market, the kind of money that is available for adoption for newer technologies, if you compare it to, say, the US, it's a drop in the ocean. I mean, as a case in point, just let's say the energy efficiency sector. The new US president just announced that there's $40 billion for clean energy, which is being announced, and that probably makes the sector now a 250 billion sector, in addition to whatever was the size of the sector. As compared to that, the Indian energy efficiency market is just about $300 million or so. So, there's a factor of merit. But that said, the Indian market is a very different market in the sense that if what is perceived to be a luxury, actually becomes a necessity, then the money is found, from wherever it is. So it's really about tapping into and changing that hierarchy of needs. And there's this famous book by Geoffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, and that has those, the innovators, the early adopters, and then the early majority. The Indian market is possibly not got as many people in the innovators and the early adopters, but when it comes to early majority and then the late majority, for sure, we have a lot of people there. So it's just about crossing that particular chasm. And mobile telephony is a good example in point. I mean, we weren't the first ones, but look at how we've adopted it. Right, which brings me to the second part of your question, which is around what are the opportunities that 2020 has thrown up, and what exactly we see playing out in 2021. And really speaking, this is around the running of building systems automation. That is something which is today becoming quite prevalent as per prescribed sequences. There are numerous facets of this, whether it is automated IAQM, whether it is automated visitor management, parking management, washroom management, comfort being delivered as per a certain prescribed sequence, safety being delivered, and that's something which is becoming very important post 2020. Clients are taking safety very, very seriously, and looking at many different aspects of how their building can be improved. So these are numerous opportunities which are emerging for us that we see playing out and becoming much larger given the changed normal which we've seen.
Great. Thank you, Gaurav. I think those are great points. I'm also keeping an eye on the clock. I think we have 20 more minutes to go. I'll just quickly move on to Sumit, just to pick up on the point that Gaurav was making in terms of a lot of early majority available, but the first movers and the early adopters are a little low. So, so do you see yourself, Sumit, on the early adopter side? And what do you see as the future of work, and how important is investing in technology for you? Because when you start investing in technology, that's when I think the money will follow. Just if you could quickly allude to what's your view of the future of work and where you want to invest money for.
So I think there are two things here. One is early adopters to the future of work. Definitely, organizations have moved there faster than anybody else, because we have realized that remote working is a capability. It is no more a business continuity, it's a capability. And that capability will be harnessed not only by us, but by everybody in the market. But coming back to the point of startup ecosystem, so to me, 2021 is a year of, it's actually it starts a decade of a larger collaboration. So collaboration at national level, collaboration at your community level, and so on. But then also with that collaboration, there is a starting block in 2021, which is protectionism, which we are all going to face. But is it a bad news for investors and investment flow for startups? Answer is no, because India by itself is a huge market. So you have two streams to grow as a startup, and similar starting to flow. One is the startup ecosystem, which is focused on low cost growth, right? Which is focused on efficiencies and all those things which are very, very specific to the Indian market, because the diverse needs of the Indian market have still not been harnessed, and the government is totally focused towards that market in big time, supporting it all the way. And if we want to get that deficit gap of another 3 trillion to 5 trillion, you cannot do it without making sure that the Atmanirbhar Bharat and the whole startup ecosystem push is through. So have that one market where more number of transactions, less number of returns, but long run, a good market to be. And then you have this market, which is to be serving the globe, right? And their, immediate return assurance, great. But then, from technology perspective, I would like to focus personally more on startups which are more into deep tech going forward, rather than just seeing the peripheral of technology and bringing value to existing technologies. So when I say deep tech, what has this COVID proven to is that the gestation period of deep tech, like biotech, has been reduced big time, right? And the existing ecosystem which you have of cloud and data already gives you that capability to be able to, it actually reduces your barrier cost to get started. So I would focus my money and investment personally wherever you are in the deep tech. From a market perspective, I think I'm not worried where the startup is focused on, whether a B2B space or towards the domestic market. I would be more cautious towards the technologies they are picking up and what is their outlook and long-term horizon look towards that.
Thank you, Sumit. I think there's a little bit of a discussion at my end or everyone's end, but I got what you primarily in terms of how businesses are now ready to openly accept and detect startups as the new normal. And I'm sure that's music to ears to many of the panelists as well as a lot of people out there who are listening. So I think that's a great point to make. Quickly to also have a rejoinder from Prithvi on this, because again, from an end user perspective, how do you think companies are now handling innovation? Sumit spoke about deep tech being the most preferred kind of technology that they want to look at. Do you think having an internal innovation team is important in terms of deciding where to invest in? Or how do you make that decision in terms of spending money in terms of innovation? Just if you could allude to that quickly, and then we can move to Vijay, who will obviously make a very important point at the end.
Sure, Harsh. So, when you're looking at any new technology or evaluating, the product itself, you look at how specifically it fits into our entire vision of integrating to the end user. So, if it fits a piece and if it works well with the other other existing technologies, we would very well make the investment. And of course, definitely it has to make commercial sense in terms of an ROI. Maybe we look at an ROI of 3 to 5 years in terms of how technology would benefit us, because initial investment is always calculated. So if that works out in that span, and I make sure that the entire teams are involved in from all the segments, so that they are the ones who are the users in the sense of the technology and how to benefit from that. So once they are bought into the system, everything else will just follow.
Prithvi, I think your voice broke off a little. Is it just me, or?
I'm not sure till what part. So, Harshan, can you hear me now? Is it audible?
Yeah, it is. Yes. Please do go ahead.
So I was just saying the internal investment, internal innovation team would be the people who would be actually running the apps as the end users. So we would make sure that we get them on board, so that the entire things will be taken forward by them and leveraged by them.
Fantastic. I think having an internal innovation wing per se for many of these organizations becomes really critical to be able to evaluate where to invest the money in and how that's relevant and sustainable over a long term for businesses. Now, just coming to Vijay. Vijay, one thing I think would be very interesting for a lot of people here would be to understand the fundraising process as you have experienced it. And you've been able to raise funds from across the board of investors. If you could share a few tips, possibly in terms of how your interactions have been with investors and what has worked for you, I think that might be really helpful for the people out there.
Yeah, so I think in the PropTech space, right, when you have to get somebody's appetite to invest on you, there are very critical metrics that I think VC would like to see based on our interactions that I'm quoting here, right? And Ninad, you can pitch in the moment you feel if something is wrong, right? So what I fundamentally see is, especially in the PropTech space, right, your ability to scale or your ability to distribute your product becomes a very, very critical factor, right? While you're solving the problem, right? See, what happens with most of the entrepreneurs is they try to solve the problem end to end, right? What I say is, as an entrepreneur, you can solve only few problems. You can't solve all the problems because you're always, most of the times you're bootstrapped, right? When you're coming up with a solution, you can only solve one problem and try to solve that problem at scale and make sure that your product is distributed very fast, right? Otherwise, what will happen is, by the time, like if you see, for example, you take the COVID example, you're solving the problem end to end. One disruption like this starts, and your entire solution actually becomes, void, and entire investment and all those things that came into this till now actually goes back, right? So I feel that solve small problems and problems that can be solved at scale, and your distribution is very, very fast, and the customer is willing to pay for it, right? So what happens is, what I've seen, right, when I used to sell the product, right, to whether it is to customers like Sumit or to customers like Prithvi, right? Everybody has got their own way of thinking about innovation, right? So what happens in PropTech space, like every customer is a big customer. If I go to a Prestige or if I go to a Cognizant or if I go to any builder, every builder is a big customer for me, right? So what ends up happening when you go to these kind of big customers is you end up customizing it to them quite a lot, and you end up becoming a services company, right? So you need to draw a line where what is the solution that you want to sell, right? And what is the solution that the customer wants, and very clearly you need to educate the customer. So there are some things which we can do, and there are some things which we cannot do, and there are some things which we get in close to reality, because Sumit is thinking about the problem at hand, and he has got some way of give a solution for it. But as an entrepreneur and being close to the innovation, what is feasible, what is not feasible, and what is going to come later on, right? So I think that education also becomes very important. And once you're able to do all these three things, that's the time you start getting money on the table. And once your growth is at par with what a VC is looking at, when all those boxes are ticked, I think people will come chasing for deals like this, right? Yeah, so that's what I would say in the fundraising this thing, and be very focused in what you're doing, right? Again, real estate is such a place, real estate or PropTech is such a space, right? You find, a Bombay market different than a Hyderabad market, different than a Bangalore market, different than a Hyderabad market, right? You have to be very clear in terms of what you need to, where you need to focus. Like say, for example, our early days, we said that we focus only in Bangalore, and not only, not complete Bangalore. We'll only focus in Bellandur area, right, which has got highest concentration. Get 20% of the market share there, then go to the next pin code. So you need to be very, very focused also in your, acts, right? So I think all these things play a very, very big role in, a VC determining whether I can fund in this startup or not. Ninad, if you have any points to add or anything to contradict, it will be a learning. Yeah.
I will never contradict you, Vijay. Not in public, but in private, we can have a discussion. No, but I think on a more serious note, you really summed it up well. Scale is very important. So there are, to raise money, you have various options. You have VCs, you have private equity guys, you have banks, finance. Let me first, since you're talking specifically on VCs, you're very right. Number one, we see scale. We don't fund lifestyle businesses. The difference is lifestyle business funds your lifestyle, your family, your home, which is good. Nothing wrong in that. We want businesses to scale rapidly. If it's not scaling rapidly, VCs are not interested. It's not that a business is not fundable. It's not a VC fundable business. We look at what can go right, not what can go wrong. There are various parameters, and we are the thing we're investing with a 95% failure rate is money, and we're looking for exit. So these are very, very clear factors, Vijay. I'm glad you brought. But we are really looking for a lot of ideas. Capital is chasing ideas, not the reverse. If you have a smart idea, prop tech, anything connected, you will get funded. If not by 100x by someone else.
Fantastic. I think that's like the apt and perfect closure for the session. I have gotten a gentle nudge from Sapna saying that we must now move on to taking questions. But Vijay and Ninad, I think the key thing that especially was startups who are in the audience would want to take away is that the need to stay focused, need to stay simple, solving the right problems. But also, if you are really looking at raising funds from VCs, you have to have a scalable business model, and that's where the money will follow. Obviously, there are funding is not and never restricted only to the VC ecosystem. There are multiple avenues for raising funding, and every viable business would end up raising funds. So either one way or the other. But the key to looking at building a business which is scalable, which is simple, solving a very simple problem, which Vijay was talking to, and staying really focused on what you want to solve. With that note, we can open it up to questions. Before that, Sapna, I will just want to summarize the entire discussion here for the benefit of everyone here. We started off by talking about the trends that the space will see. Then we quickly moved on to where investments will happen. We had taken a view from the entire spectrum of the ecosystem here. And some of the key things that emerged is here. One, 2021, everyone is really optimistic about the whole economy is pumped to grow. So a lot of activity coming up, a lot of funding activity coming up, especially in this space. Two, deep tech is going to be the preference across board, and startups, innovators, technologies, even funders would be chasing deep tech as a major priority. There are obviously new paradigms of customer acquisition that has come up that might be really beneficial for the sector to go forward. Also, the panel spoke about simple truths in terms of the challenges and adoption and how they expect this to basically change in the coming year. I would probably stop here because of the paucity of time. Sapna, we can take a few questions.
Harshan, I'll pose the questions and then you can decide who should be answering that. While the panel has spoken about the tech areas that will be of interest to investors, there is an interesting question that we have is which tech areas are old news or saturated from investors' point of view? Harshan, who should be taking this question?
I think Ninad can take it.
I was about to tell you, Harshan, easy question take, tough question Vijay should take, but anyway, you're the boss, so we'll go with that. I think the saturated areas are, the internal, let's say accounting, ERP, the internal productivity tools are saturated. There are plenty of people.
Okay. So they will not be of that much interest to investors if you are talking about funding. Now the panel members have spoken about this particular aspect, but I still take this question is they are saying why prop tech companies have not been able to raise funds like tech players in other segments such as e-commerce and food delivery. What is the reason?
I think. I think it can go to both Ninad and Vijay. Vijay can talk because he has been able to raise funds. So there is a reality there. So maybe Vijay can pick it up first, and then Ninad can come in and talk about the e-com space.
Yeah, see, I think for us, right, the problem that we ended up solving is the problem that the customer is facing multiple times a day. I think the frequency of the problem is also very important when when we are stepping into something, right? I think that was a very important factor when we got into this particular space, right? And even when the VC were also evaluating us, they said that, okay, how many times the customer is facing the problem which you are solving, right? If you see all these food tech or fintech and all these other things, right? You eat food multiple times a day, you travel multiple times, or you go for mobility multiple times a day, you pay multiple times a day. Right, so all these things required some kind of intervention, and entrepreneurs came and did that, right? in our space also, right, we identified that, okay, the building accesses, or people go through this gate multiple times a day. You interact with security guard multiple times a day, and none of us, actually, and all of us face friction, and we take that as our way of life, right? And we said that, okay, how can we break this problem, right? Or how can we solve this problem? And that's how I think it attracted us, right? But also there are, if you see Sumit's case, there may be some problems that he's facing from a building management multiple times a day, and you have to go after problems that are solving multiple times a day. Otherwise, the earlier question, what is the technology that is attracting funds, is not the right question. What are the problems that you're solving attract the right fund? Technology just happens to be a medium, right? But solving the problem is more important, right? Which is the problem you're solving? That is more important in life, right?
Okay.
So look for problems which are faced by your consumers multiple times a day is the mantra, I would say.
Ninad, you'd like to add to it?
Sure, very quickly, I'll just add on. I think it's not fair to compare PropTech with e-commerce. E-commerce is a huge area. It's not a industry. But let's compare PropTech to FinTech. FinTech is much ahead. The reason is very simple. If you are running in a race that is 100 meters, 400 meters, the person ahead is the first one who gets off the block. They were the guys who realized, located a problem and said, we have to solve the problem. And they went off the block. And that's why they are ahead. I think you'll catch up. 2021, PropTech will catch up fast and furious.
Okay. That's a very positive note. This one last question, probably I'll ask my other panel members, Sumit and Prithvi and Gaurav. It's more of a statement. They say the challenge with investors is that in terms of investing in technology, is to find the startup that have world-class technology product. They also have the knowledge of finance as well as real estate and operations. To get all of that in one startup, that is the challenge. Sumit, you'd like to take that first. You were talking about deep tech. So here we are talking about how can we get all these factors within one company so that the investors are confident of funding.
Absolutely. And I would like to take one analogy which was used by Nick. The analogy he used about was that of fintech. And why we found that fintech was able to go ahead, because when everybody thought that there was no need to prove or invest into technologies which are core to that sector, fintech kept investing into those technologies. They were paranoid about the security of the funds of their customers. They were paranoid about personal information security of their customers. So they kept investing in those technologies and created a niche by itself. In a similar manner, I feel that the whole tech, the tech investment space has got saturated world over, and the tech industry by itself is waiting for changing the platform and moving to the next technology. That is where deep tech creates that opportunity for you to discover that and then own the IP comes with you. Owning that IP creates a market, and that is why I am very gung-ho about deep tech investments.
Okay, fantastic. Prithvi, you'd like to share your views on that, because you are the end customer. If a company comes with a great product but not so much of real estate and operations knowledge, how do you approach that?
So I fundamentally look at the promoters. So I meet the top person and see how committed they are to the cause, and if to what extent that is solving the the issue at hand that we have. So if I have two of these, I would go in for the product. I wouldn't because in this day and age, I don't care much about the real estate or to what extent they are they are covered. My primary motive would be immediately to what extent my problem would be solved and how committed and how focused the promoters are.
Great. Gaurav, you would like to add to it?
Certainly. I actually disagree with that statement, and I think it ties into what Vijay spoke about very articulately earlier. I think as startup companies, you cannot solve all the problems that are there. So as startup companies, yes, a certain amount of domain knowledge is important, but you can only solve that one problem. And before jumping into that problem, what startup companies need to be asking ourselves is the problem that we are solving important enough? Number two, are we solving it in a sustainable manner? I mean, it shouldn't be a one-off. We should be able to solve that problem over and over. So that's, the scale that Vijay also referred to. And lastly, are we creating enough value, differentiation or disruption, or call it what you will, but in the customer's mind, are we creating enough value? So you can use technology to try and solve these problems, or you can use anything else, maybe coming at the problem from a finance angle. It doesn't matter, but one should pick that one horse which is there, and then as long as these boxes are ticked, is the problem big enough? Are we solving it sustainably, and are we creating enough value? So if those happen, then I think startups have a winning formula.
Great. I think we got some very varied views, Harshan, from all the members, from investment to the what kind of investments, what kind of tech areas, and how the whole segment is going to move forward. So that was in fact we can go on and on discussing about it, but again the time limits us. But thank you all so much, Harshan, first of all, for moderating this panel so well and getting the best from our speakers. Vijay, for sharing your views as a prop tech company. Mr. Ninad, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us on our panels. Sumit, sharing your views as the end user. Prithvi, same with you, sharing your views with us as the end user, bringing that perspective. I'm sure there are a lot of tech companies who are hearing, this discussion, and they have a lot of takeaways that they have taken. Gaurav, again, sharing your views. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us today and sharing your time and views.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.